Hey, it's John Nolan here. Listen, supply chain breakdowns continue to have a domino effect on everything, especially food production. Farmers can't plant as many crops now because of fertilizer shortages, forced regulations, and high fuel prices. Food takes time to grow, so when farmers don't plant, well, you get the picture. It's the perfect time to start growing your own food if you can, and prepare with emergency food. Right now, save $50 on a 4-week food kit from My Patriot Supply. Go to preparewithinspired.com and get your $50 savings right now. Again, that's preparewithinspired.com. Hey, Inspired Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers, it's John Nolan here. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for sharing, liking, subscribing, and hitting the notifications button to make sure you get notified about new videos. So, one thing that we all share on this journey of exploring greater truth, of finding out who we truly are, and of having this deep desire, creating a better future, a better world, even a new civilization, is that on this journey, we must be willing to get really provoked. We must be willing to even get so uncomfortable that we eventually transcend our current limitations of thinking and belief systems. Now, one of those things is, if you go into vision building into the future, what is the future going to look like? What are forms of government and what are forms of community and society that will work in the future? When you actually break it down, there's only one thing that currently makes a lot of sense, makes the most sense in order to develop this beautiful future. And that is actually something that equates to nationalism. Now, a lot of people are going to stop and say, well, there's some right-wing stuff and some blah, blah. Let's forget about that for a moment, because the terms nationalism, populism, patriotism have all been heavily smeared, and they have been attached with very negative meanings on purpose. The people that have been doing this, these entities and groups, have done it on purpose because they understand it's the strongest form of unity. I would suggest that even though you might not define yourself that way, you might not look at yourself that way, you might be a closet nationalist. What do I mean by that? If we look into the universe, everything as within, so without. What happens on the micro level also happens on the macro level. This is a universal law. So I would suggest, if you are really taking great care of your own home, if you're really taking great care of your own family, if you are looking after the people closest to you, and if it is your deep desire to improve your life and their lives by your actions and expressions, I would say you are a nationalist, because that is exactly what that actually means. It means that you are taking care of that which is within the confines of your community, your family, your life. Now let's look at the definition for nationalism. There are a few, and there actually might be quite surprising. Nationalism is devotion, especially excessive or undiscriminating devotion, to the interests or culture of a particular nation state. Well, it makes total sense, right? Or the belief that nations will benefit from acting independently rather than collectively, emphasizing national rather than international goals. The belief that a particular cultural or ethnic group constitutes a distinct people deserving of political self-determination. Now, as you can say, none of these definitions say that one people is better than another people. It also doesn't mean that you go and fight other nations. To the contrary, what I've experienced is that great nationalists, people that live this idea, are actually encouraging other leaders in other nations to do the same thing. As such, I believe this is the future until we truly get to this core culture that we all actually share when we go far, far back. But why does that make sense? And why should we support political groups and political leaders that are nationalists? Now, this sounds so counterintuitive to the spiritual soul because, again, we've been misled and we've been lied to. So what that actually means is, in the truest sense of the word, that each nation takes care of its needs, takes care of its wants, and takes care of its people independently. Now, if we do what is best for all of us, right? If I do what's best for my family, for my house, my land, if you will, and if I truly take morals and principles to heart, in doing that really what's best, I also do what's best for my community. When everyone in our community does that, we do what's best for each other, when we do what's best for all. So in that thought process, you see, we also do what's best for the world. The idea of globalism and unlimited internationalism is so unfeasible and is so illogical, because the needs of the people in a cold northern climate zone are completely different than the needs from the people that are somewhere on the equator and have a completely different climate and weather pattern every year. Even that distinction creates a whole different sets of needs. Also, depending on the resources that a nation has, it has a completely different approach. Now, what will nationalism do for us is that we will focus on providing for ourselves. Just like we say, become independent. When we become independent beings, independent families, independent cultures, we can become independent nations again. So taking care of our needs, the basic needs that we all need, they should always be provided within a nation. No nation should have to import their basic goods that they need for survival. So that is something that needs to be established. Of course, defense of a nation, it is important. Every culture, every indigenous people took care of that. Also, that is important. Friendships, independent nations that are thriving within the national borders are excellent friends to have within international relationships, because all of a sudden you are not dealing with needs and needs. You're dealing in terms of equals that are talking to each other, trading and helping each other. This is actually a really, really good thing. Another thing also is that defining factor of the moral health of a nation is how it treats those who for some reason cannot help themselves, right? So that is also an important factor in this nationalist idea. To explain to you where I'm coming from, I have never lived where I was born in my life. I've never lived where I was born in my life. The truth is that in my experience, the people that treated me the best wherever I was a guest in that country, I now consider this absolutely my home, is where my heart is here in America. The people that treated me the best were always nationalists in their country. The people that I had the most run-ins with, and there were very few to be honest, but were always those who said they were absolutely open borders, open everything, no nothing, and they portrayed themselves as super accepting, open, liberal. They were the ones I had the biggest run-ins with as a guest in their country. It's very interesting to observe that. But I'm not trying to create divides here. What my intention is to help you see how when you support, I'm not talking about extremist nationalists, which are people that want to fight other cultures, people that pretend they're better than other cultures. That's not what this is about. It is about a pride in your own land, a pride in your own people, a pride in the deepening and redeveloping of a culture. That's nothing that is bad. We have been just taught that it's bad. We've been brought up with a kind of self-hate, which is completely illogical and unsensical. It makes so much sense that we develop our nations. It makes so much sense that we look after our interests. It makes so much sense that people say we should put our communities, our regions, our cities, our families, our culture first, because only then will there be strength and pride and community and abundance and people thriving. And that in itself creates a healthy, beautiful, abundant world. It is also the only way we will ever be able to return to our prime culture, find out who we truly are, because we won't constantly be bombarded with the watering down of this process. You can't have a development process if constantly a million other people are coming in watering down your own development. It just does not work. Does that mean we should be nations and close our borders? No. Think in different terms. Think like you think about your house and you think about your property. You want to take care of your house. You want to take care of your property. You take great pride in its beauty. You take great pride in its health. You take great pride in everything that belongs with it. And then you open it to guests of your choosing. That's what you do. You invite people in. You say, yes, I want you in my house, or no, thank you, I don't want you in my house. What an absolutely illogical idea that you would just open your house to anyone. Well, that's stupid. There are so many stupid people out there, aggressive people out there, violent people out there. Why would you want to open your house to them? That doesn't make any sense, and it's only a theory that works in theory. All the politicians out there that are pretending to be so open, they don't open their doors, they don't open their houses, they don't house anyone. They don't do that. They don't walk the talk. You think the great leadership of the fascist party in this country, you all know which party that is now. And, you know, not to get too much into party politics here, because that in itself is its own game. But those great leaders don't ever walk their talk. They build fences, they have armed guards, and they couldn't care less. I say that what works for us individually will work for us collectively. So we have to take care, become independent, self-reliable, self-responsible again. If we do it in our own lives, our families are better. If our families do it, our communities are better. If our communities do it, our nations are better. That's how this will work. And then eventually down the line, down the road, years, decades, God knows how long that process will take, we will be at a point where every nation will be so healthy, so full of culture and joy and freedom and health and abundance and nature and all of those beautiful things, that there might not be a need for the idea of borders anymore. There might not be a need for these hard distinctions, because we will have come to the conclusion that we all share one base culture that we all once shared and can share once again. That, I believe, is the only feasible way to do it. So our hearts, our minds, and our support are in true nationalist movements that are all about bettering, creating wonderful communities, and also seeking friendship with all others. I do not believe that there is a people, a chosen people, or a culture, ethnic group that is better than the other. What I do believe is that we all have pieces of the puzzle and eventually need to come together. That is the big picture here. For this particular nation, I believe that we would be very well served to reconnect with the indigenous culture of this country, of this land, of America, of Turtle Island, to work with the indigenous people to bring the wisdom that has inspired the American Constitution. We're going to get into this topic in a separate video. American Constitution was heavily inspired by the Six Nations Constitution that actually really brought the idea of freedom, which the founding fathers didn't really know what freedom was, because it wasn't lived anywhere but here. So there's a lot of great, beautiful material there that we're going to dive into in a different video. But I do believe this nation will thrive once again when indigenous wisdom, indigenous culture is coming to the forefront and helping us actually reignite truth, authenticity, freedom, abundance, prosperity for everyone. So this is just a little bit about what I see in the future. If you live in Germany, if you live in France, if you live in Angola, or if you live in India, I encourage you to throw away this globalist belief that you can make the biggest difference somewhere else in the world. Make the difference where you are. Be proud of who you are. Be proud of your beautiful country. Be proud of your culture. If it needs betterment, which I believe all our cultures need, apply yourself to that process. Become involved. Bring betterment to it. But please, let's all do it where we are, and we're going to have the biggest impact. Also, last but not least, I'm an absolute proponent of non-interventionalism. I don't think nations should mess with each other's business unless there are, absolute violations, atrocities where nations need to step in and help the people of another nation. And there are examples of that. But in terms of you going and invading another nation for resources, oppressing its people for your nation's good, that's not nationalism. That is a tyranny. It's completely different, and it's not what I support at all. If you want to think in more political terms, what I'm talking about, if I would have ever loved to see someone become president who hasn't, it would be Dr. Ron Paul. I do think in so many ways, his amazing vision would have been amazing for this country. And go and check out the Liberty Report by Dr. Ron Paul. Again, it's a lot of alignment in political thinking and in nation-building thinking. Inspired Tribe, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you. I love you. We love you. We'll be back with you again very, very soon.